What did the Bosmer see in the heart of the forest that doomed their kind? Vivardenfell stew, * weaves nameless king canopies to sign an ancient flesh. Trees murmur in elven tongues, * the steward walks without eyes, * a nameless king signed an ancient accord, binding his line to the roots. Hunt * the rides not as steward conquerors walks without eyes, * a liberators, executioner. The bark of the elder trees hums with a resonance like distant flutes, their sap bleeding amber light where moonlight dares to touch. Beneath the undergrowth, the air thrums with the static of 1,000 unspoken vowsazone and petriture tangled in the breath of something vast. You can feel it in your teeth, the pulse of a heart that is not a heart, bound to the blood of a king who signed his name in root and rot. His descendants fled, but the forest forgot to let him go. Now bioluminescent fungi trace the shape of his lingering silhouette in the moss, and the wild hunt rides through the fog not to hunt, but to herd gently, patiently, like shepherds guiding a wounded stag from a thorny thicket. The forest does not remember its master, it only remembers its chains. And in the marrow of every fallen log, the echo of a question: what kind of god makes a home in a prison? The first Bosmer knelt not in worship, but in theft. A blade of moonlight, a promise of stewardship. The forest spirit spoke true words binding its will to a single elven soul, not a people. 1,000 years later, the bargain's shadow gnaws. What price buys eternity? The packmaker's line pays in blood, their essence fraying the veil between root and realm. Each wild hunt is no random cursate follows the spirit's first betrayal, a storm of antlers and anguish to unmake what cannot unmake itself. The Ada walk Anos dance, but Bosmer feet tread a narrower path. Their elders chant of harmony, yet the forest breathes only through a prison of oaths, who hears the spirit's silent plea in every fallen branch. The fatal flaw was never in the Pact's terms but in its singularity, a god's power tethered to one fragile vessel. A people's destiny hinged on a single mortal soul, and when that soul cracks, the forest wakes not to wrath but to escape. The question is not * why * the wild hunt comes. It is * how long * until the spirit stops asking permission to be free. The first shaman knelt where the river whispered secrets. Pine resin clung to the air, sweet and thick. Their drumbeat matched the forest's pulse until the elder's voice cracked, naming a price in syllables that tasted of iron. That night the feast's firelight flickered with shadows of what would be lost. A young Bosmeri clutched her mother's cloak. The wine she drank left a bitter tang, a foreshadowing. The pact was sealed not with ink but with a single elven soul, its name etched into the roots beneath the dance floor. No one asked how the weight of 1,000 years might crush it. Centuries later, the same river runs colder, its current thick with the scent of decay. The wild hunt's wails pierce the mist, a sound that gnaws at the eardrums. A stag's antlers snag on thorned vines, its blood pooling in the soil like a dark offering. The trees here lean inward, as if listening. A lone hunter pauses, feels the damp cling of rot on their skin, wonders if the forest is weeping or screaming. Legends call it a balance, but balance is a lie told to the unbroken. The true story lives in the tremor of leaves before the hunt arrives, in the way the wind carries not songs but sighs. The first shaman's descendants still dream of that fateful night, of the name spoken into the earth. They do not dream of the soul buried there writhing. They do not dream they are the prison, the forest does. The nameless elven soul who spoke the pact did not bargain for eternity. Chains forged in thorns bind what should have been a covenant. The forest's breath turned to whisper starving, demanding. Each elder's final gasp feeds roots that do not nourish, they choke. The wild hunt rides not as punishment, but as liberation, a blade through a rotting vein. The first packmaker's kin saw the price, their blood now tides that drown the forest's throat, no stewardship, no balance. Only a contract that outlived its maker, gnawing through generations. The hunt's spectral hounds are not hunters. They are the forest's fists, clawing at a bargain written in bone. How many Bosmeri lives bought to keep the earth from vomiting the nameless corpse back into the sun? The elder's dreams are not visions. They are the Pact's teeth, gnashing warnings through roots and ribs. The wild hunt's cry is the forest's final clause, no longer a bond, but a severance. The price of survival was to become the prison. The price of the prison was to forget you were the key. The forest does not hunger, it itches . 1,000 years of a soul's echo, trapped between bark and breath, turning stewardship to siege. And still the Bosmer run, chasing shadows that are not theirs. The hunt is the only heir to the Pact's truth, that to save the forest, someone must finally let it die . The Pact's shadow held a hidden cost. One soul's breath fed the forest's veins, but not all covenants honor their debtors. What price did the wild hunt pay when the forest forgot its master's name? Their silence birthed the hunt's unrelenting wail. The Green Pact's flaw was never in its inconly in the soul it bound, and now the price is due. But their greatest rupture was still ahead. The forest screamed when the first hunters vanished. Red year, ash-blackened stars, the earth itself recoiled. The Great War fractured the Concordat's brittle peace. Oblivion crisis, that was the Bosmeri elders whisper of a nameless elven soul, a thread woven into Valenwood's heart, not steward, not guardian, a keystone and keystones rot. Legends claim the wild hunt is not a curse, but a contract's unraveling. 1,000 years of silence, of balance, of a single soul bearing the weight of a living god. The forest did not bargain for eternity, it bargained for escape. You think the hunt is chaos? No. It is a forest choking on its own breath, clawing at the chains of a pact never spoken aloud. The riders are not demons. They are roots become teeth, trees become hunger. The red year's first snow fell in summer, rivers ran copper. The Oblivion crisis was no rift, it was a forest vomiting the poison of a borrowed life. They say the eldest steward still walks, bound to Valenwood's pulse, but what if the bond was never mutual? What if the forest's heart beats only to count the seconds until its jailer dies? The plague, a fever, the hunt, a death rattle. The red year, a will being unmade. And deep in the blackened glades, the wind carries a question no scholar dares answer. If the forest is a jailer, who holds the key? The price is paid, the ink is dust, only the thread remains, and it is screaming. The air in Valenwood hums with a sickly resonance, as though the trees themselves are exhaling their last. Elders trace the gnarled roots where the steward once pressed a palm to the earth, a scar of blackened moss, reeking of iron and rot. You can still hear it if you press your ear to the bark, a heartbeat, slow and labored, sinking with the pulse of a forest that forgets how to breathe. The wild hunt now rides at dawn, not dusk, their horns splitting the mist like axes through timber. A child in Mournhold swore she saw their leader, a figure with antlers for a crown and eyes, like collapsed stars pausing mid-gallop before the steward's path. The Bosmeri hunters who follow that trail return hollow-eyed, their arrows snapped, their tongues sealed by a terror that tastes of sap and blood. Somewhere beneath the soil the thread strains. It is not the forest that screams. It is the soul that binds it, unraveling stitch by cursed stitch. What does a god do when its vessel becomes a tomb? It borrows the teeth of the dead to gnaw at the locks. The elder's voice cracks like wind through dry pine resin, each syllable steeped in the bittersweet smoke of a steward's fire. His hut, carved into a root as ancient as the accords it guards, reeks of myrrh and firtwo scents the forest taught the Bosmer to blend. He kneels, palms pressed to the earth, and the soil trembles in answer, a heartbeat slowing toward death. The spirit haunts a glade where light pools like quicksilver, cold and unyielding. Its form, woven from lichen and memory, shivers when the wind carries the name Aldrun*. It remembers not the pact, but the gasp of the pact maker as roots strangled his throat, a sound now etched into every rustling leaf. The trees still weep sap where his blood seeped, a sweetness that turns to gall on the tongue. The scholar's study is a cage of parchment, its ink stained with midnight oil and doubt. He scribbles myth in the margins, yet his hand pauses when the wall's exhalia sound like roots shifting, like a throat clearing. One night he finds his quill bleeding sap, and the words bound and stolen rise in the rot. He burns the page. The smoke smells of pine and old wounds. The forest does not hunger, it craves . And when the steward's heart failed, the roots did not release him. They wove him into their flesh, a living lock in a vault of thorns. What does a god do when its vessel becomes a tomb? It borrows the teeth of the dead to gnaw at the locks. The Bosmeri chronicles hint at a steward's name. The songs of the return omit the pact's terms. What remains is a pattern of oaths broken, a forest bound to a single elven soul. No stone or scroll confirms its existence. Yet ballads whisper of a bargain sealed in sap and shadow. The wild hunt gallops through Valenwood's veins, a storm of antlers and wrath. Is it vengeance or the forest's desperate math? A contract demands balance, one life for every root that coils. One death for every branch that bends. The steward's name fades, the cost remains. The Bosmer avoid the oldest trees. They touch their brows in passing, a ritual of unspoken guilt. No Green Pact exists in the records. Only the shape of one carved into the scars of the land. The wild hunt is not a curse, it is a calculation. A god's arithmetic. What if the hunt is not chaos but a reckoning? Not a myth but a contract's final clause. The steward sleeps. The forest wakes, and the arithmetic waits for its due. The steward sleeps, the forest wakes, and beneath the roots, a ledger of sighs and shattered vows. No pact by name, yet Valenwood remembers the price paid in shadow where Bosmer blood once pooled beside the first axe's drip. Years, yet the trees Valenwood did not conspire, they price paid in endured. And when a people carve their dominion into the flesh of a world, what does the world carve back? A cycle, a hunger. A law older than the Aldmeri, grinding slow as petrified sap. The wild hunt is not chaos, it is arithmetic. A debt not of coin, but of life reckoned in the howl of oaks and the shiver of leaves that refuse to fall. The Bosmer call it balance, they are half right. For what they call guardianship, the forest calls imprisonment. Every bowstring's hum, every hunter's breath, is a thread in the net that binds the steward's dream. The longer they stay, the more the land dreams through Themit's pulse in their veins, its wrath in their bones. To wield a forest is to inherit its hunger. The Bosmer did not steal Valenwood, they became its stewards than its instruments. The wild hunt is the forest's hand, clawing at the contract it never signed. A bargain struck in the dark by a people who believed they could outlast the dawn, but roots outlast empires. And when the arithmetic is done, the last Bosmer will not fall by blade or beast. They will fall by the weight of a question, who owns the dreamer when the dream turns wild. The steward sleeps, the forest wakes, and beneath the roots, a ledger of sighs and shattered vows. No pact by name, yet Valenwood remembers the price paid in shadow where Bosmer blood once pooled beside the first axe's drip. 1,000 years the trees did not conspire, they endured. And when a people carve their dominion into the flesh of a world, what does the world carve back? A cycle, a hunger. A law older than the Aldmeri, grinding slow as petrified sap. The wild hunt is not chaos, it is arithmetic. A debt not of coin, but of life reckoned in the howl of oaks and the shiver of leaves that refuse to fall. The Bosmer call it balance, they are half right. For what they call guardianship, the forest calls imprisonment. Every bowstring's hum, every hunter's breath, is a thread in the net that binds the steward's dream. The longer they stay, the more the land dreams through Themit's pulse in their veins, its wrath in their bones. To wield a forest is to inherit its hunger. The Bosmer did not steal Valenwood, they became its stewards than its instruments. The wild hunt is the forest's hand, clawing at the contract it never signed. A bargain struck in the dark by a people who believed they could outlast the dawn, but roots outlast empires. And when the arithmetic is done, the last Bosmer will not fall by